all of these performances by Democrats, as embarrassing as they are, do convey an important message. And that message is that despite the rhetoric of every Democrat politician in the country, we do not live in a fascist dictatorship. It's been a while since we've checked in on the theater kids occupying our government. The last time was about 6 months ago when we discussed Ketanji Brown Jackson's decision to star in a play on Broadway. She could barely sing, she couldn't act, the whole thing was an embarrassment, and it made it hard to ignore the fact that at the highest levels, Democrats aren't really interested in governing. Instead, they're interested in fulfilling their lifelong ambition to play a role on a grand stage. They don't care how much they humiliate themselves. They simply don't want to be politicians. They don't want to be political leaders. They want to be Hollywood stars. Based on real events, it brings me no joy to report that at the moment, these failed thespians are now completely out of control. Maybe it's the warmer weather. Maybe it's the fact that Donald Trump's in office. Maybe we've reached critical levels of mental illness in this country. Most likely it's all three. Whatever the case, we have to talk about it because it reveals something about the Democrat Party that they desperately don't want you to think about. And we'll start with the story of the week, which, or of last week anyway, which somehow we haven't talked about at all until now, I think, at least not in any great detail. So a guy named Alex Padilla, who's apparently a senator from California, interrupted the DHS secretary while she was speaking at an FBI field office, started shouting questions at her mid-speech, even though it wasn't time for questions yet. And then when Secret Service agents intervened, he charged towards them. And so, of course, they arrested him. This is probably the best angle of what happened. Watch.
Tried to insert
Secretary, I don't know why you insist
so I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this.
Hands up.
Also, I want to talk
Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your...
This isn't exactly the case of the century, especially because political assassinations by leftists are now common. You can't allow some guy to start yelling and moving towards an important government official. Doesn't matter if he's a senator or a janitor. No sane person does something like that. It's an obvious threat. In this case, Alex Padilla is lucky he wasn't shot. And by the way, I cover politics for a living. I never heard of Alex Padilla until this moment. Frankly, he might not even be a senator for all I know. We're going to need to fact check this. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Hopefully I'm not. In any event, this is such an obvious analysis that even CNN agrees with it. Watch.
First, you have the DHS secretary who is addressing the press. This was not a Q&A period, and she's interrupted. She's interrupted by someone who is speaking very loudly, and so her security detail confronts what we obviously now know to be the senator, and at that point, he is now going to be escorted out. You can't interrupt something like that that's already in progress without having those consequences. But the second incident, in my view, happens the moment as officers are trying to lead him out, he then turns and walks back towards kind of into those agents. At that point, from a security detail perspective, we're taking this person out against their will. We've asked the person, and again, this is all happening very quickly, but the moment he then turns into them, they realize this is not someone who is going to comply.
Now, you might think that because Alex Padilla's stunt failed and even CNN concluded his behavior was indefensible, that he would just slink away in shame and humiliation. But that's not what happened. Instead, several days after this incident, even though there's a potential war in the Middle East looming and literally everyone else has moved on to more important things, Alex Padilla stood up and delivered a tearful monologue that he'd been rehearsing for hours in front of the bathroom mirror. It's one of the most pathetic displays by a member of Congress imaginable, and here it is.
You've seen the video. I was pushed and pulled, struggled to maintain my balance. I was forced to the ground, first on my knees, and then flat on my chest. And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway, repeatedly asking, why am I being detained? Not once did they tell me why.
That may be the hardest clip to watch that we've ever played on a cancellation. It's certainly up there, at least. It's worse than serious car accidents, for sure. The car that got hit by the train because the woman driver backed up into the tracks and then ran away, as bad as it was, is nothing compared to this in terms of the incompetence and sheer cringe on display. This is probably a good time to point out that Alex Padilla has never had a real job. He's been in politics his entire life. He doesn't accomplish anything, never has. Probably never interacted with a normal person. And In that sense, this speech kind of makes sense. If you're surrounded by a bunch of hopeless phonies, then you might think a performance like that would convince normal people. To give one example of the people Alex Padilla spends his time with, here's Cory Booker reacting to this whole episode. We played some of this before, but it's worth enduring. Well, it's not really worth enduring, but we will anyway. One more time. Watch.
And this son of Mexican immigrants who cleaned homes and served food, this man with equal dignity in this body, today was driven violently to his knees, as if made to kneel before the authority of the executive, because he was so-called disrespectful. That should offend the consciousness, not just of the other 99 members of this body, it should offend the conscience of this country. Because if you could make Alex Padilla forcibly kneel before this executive, when does it stop? He's a United States senator.
Watching that, you're wondering how they could possibly think this will convince anyone. The acting is just so bad. They have no facts to support anything they're saying. And on top of that, these are the same people just a few months ago who told us that nobody is above the law. Being a husband, father, and host of my own show means life never slows down. Imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every day. Sounds miserable and time-consuming. Frankly, I just don't want to do all that. I'd rather go get something deep-fried and unhealthy sometimes. But with Balance of Nature fruits and veggies, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables every day with 31 different whole fruit and vegetable ingredients. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, they freeze-dry them, turn them into a powder, and then put them in a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and then your body knows what to do with them. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Walsh for 35% off your first order as preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Walsh. That's how they justified arresting the leading presidential candidate for fake crimes. And now when Alex Padilla is arrested for a crime he commits on camera, the defense is, how dare you? He's a senator, for God's sake. Again, people who are actors, people who are only capable of reading from a script, aren't fazed by this obvious inconsistency. They don't think, they just do what they're told. This Alex Padilla stunt was scripted in every conceivable way. After it happened, the talking point went out to every politician and media personality. This is how they plan to sell it to the public. Check it out.
And anyone that knows Alex Padilla knows one thing about Alex Padilla. He's one of the most mild-mannered, decent people you'll meet.
I know Alex Padilla to be among the most mild-mannered of colleagues.
And Jamie is right. He is very mild-mannered. He's not the type of person who would necessarily do this.
People who may not be familiar with Senator Padilla, he is one of the most mild-mannered, nerdy, soft-spoken.
Who thinks of him as anything other than a reasoned, reasonable, mild-mannered senator.
That's a montage that was put together by Western Lensman, and it's important to show it because it's actually encouraging in a way. It's more evidence that the propagandists in government and in the media are really, really bad at their jobs. They're not capable of thinking on their feet. If they were capable of independent thought, they'd realize how badly Padilla had bombed this stunt, and they'd ditch the script. But because they're essentially robots, all they can do is press on. It's like watching a Roomba continue to vacuum even as the whole house burned down around it. Just doesn't know any better. Neither does somebody named Brad Lander. Like Alex Padilla, he's someone that no one's ever heard of until 5 seconds ago. He may not even be a real person. Who knows? According to various reports, he's some sort of official in the New York government. He's apparently running for mayor and is not polling well at all. So he needs attention. And the other day, what do you know? He got attention by going to an immigration court, locking arms with a suspected criminal alien that ICE was trying to detain, and interfering with the arrest. And again, it's all on film because Brad Lander needs an audience. That's what the whole thing is for anyway, and here it is.
Judicial warrant. Do you have a judicial warrant? Keep going. Do you have a judicial warrant? Can I see the judicial warrant? Can I see the warrant? I will let go when you show me the judicial warrant. Where is it? Where is the warrant? I have it in my hand here.
You're obstructing. You're obstructing.
I would like to let go. I will let go. Take it. Just see the warrant.
Put him in custody. No. Take him back. Take him in. Take him in. Take him in. Step back. Step back.
You don't have authority. You don't have authority to arrest U.S. citizens. Sir, you don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens. You don't have the, I'm not obstructing. I'm standing right here in the hallway. I asked to see the judicial warrant.
Once again, it's an open and shut case. He's clearly impeding federal authorities to get attention to his failed political career. He should be charged with felonies and thrown in prison immediately, just like Alex Padilla. No reasonable person can watch this footage and come to any other conclusion about it. But again, just like with Alex Padilla, the Democrat machine is pretending that we don't have eyes and ears. So here's Kathy Hochul, a woman who, when you watch her and listen to her, makes you wish you didn't have eyes and ears. Here's what she had to say.
Do you want to know what I really think?
Please.
It's bull. How dare they take an elected official who's been going down there for weeks to escort people who are afraid to walk into a courthouse in the United States of America, because despite them having legal status and following the rules and making their appointments, that they don't know what's going to happen to them. So Brad Lander has stepped up to be a guiding help for them. And this is what happens to them? What the hell is happening to this country?
Now, it's often very tempting in this business to attack people for their personal appearance. And very often it's gratuitous and unfair to do so. And it's something I never do, except for all the times when I do. But, in this case, as you listen to Kathy Hochul deliver this extremely unconvincing performance and spout obvious lies as if we don't have videotape proving that she's wrong, you really can't ignore the fact that Kathy Hochul is both physically and spiritually deformed. She is a monster inside and out. And like every other failed actor in the party, she's incapable of selling her fake indignation, in part because her face can't really move. And to the extent that she was trying to sell a narrative, no one was even remotely convinced by it. They were all too distracted by whatever that was that they just watched. And that said, despite themselves, all of these performances by Democrats, as embarrassing as they are, do convey an important message. It's not the message Democrats intend to send, but it's an important message nonetheless. And that message is that despite the rhetoric of every Democrat politician in the country, we do not live in a fascist dictatorship. The fact that these people would deliberately commit crimes on camera and get arrested is proof we're not living in a fascist dictatorship. Instead, it demonstrates very clearly that Democrats know that they won't face any serious consequences when they violate the law in public. Try a stunt like that in North Korea. See how that goes. Within 24 hours, you'll become a target dummy for artillery practice. Try a stunt like that in the United States, and you get a bunch of weepy MSNBC anchors telling everyone how mild-mannered you are. Maybe that needs to change. Maybe these people should suffer some real consequences. Maybe not North Korean consequences, but, closer in that direction. But in lieu of such punishments, as justified as they would be, we'll have to settle for mocking these politicians as ruthlessly as we possibly can. And that is why Alex Padilla, Brad Lander, Cory Booker, and every other failed actor in the Democrat Party posing as a serious politician are all today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.